Okay, we're recording.
You want me to start?
I do.
I don't take instruction well, Allie.
It's all right.
Gave me the fault. Welcome to Irish Granny. I'm Helen, and this is...
I'm Allie from Heart and Soul Connected, and we're both pleased to be with you today. Thank you for being here with us. Yes.
I'm going to go back to class now.
That's okay. It's early Sunday morning. There is no class on Sunday. All right. So, as you can tell from the title of this, we're going to be discussing the mini-series on Shiny Happy People. It's on Amazon, isn't it? Is it on Amazon or
Netflix?
Netflix. No, Max. Is it?
It's
anyway, it's on TV. It's on television. It's called Shiny Happy People, and it presupposes for us that it's going to be discussing all behind the scenes with just the Duggars, but no. There's a lot more. There's a lot more, because I started to watch it, and Helen told me she watched it and she wanted to do a show on it, and I should watch it. So I did, and OMG. So here we are.
Was I right?
You were absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I mentioned it to a whole lot of people, and 100% the response is, "Oh, those people, that show is so stupid. I'm not interested in that." It tells you about the show at the beginning, but the show is peripheral to the real issues.
Correct. Yep. But really, we get the meat and potatoes of why they were the way they were. And also, I really love the fact that they had people from the same community, I guess, talk about their very real experiences. And so it explained a lot, and it wasn't just the Duggar family.
I would call them escapees, survivors. It's a cult.
Yeah. It is a cult.
Well,
it's a cult.
Before we even
cult,
start,
yep.
I want to push the book that I always push when we talk about religion and cults. This book is wonderful. And then they talk about her. They actually have her as one of the interviewees on the documentary. And I've covered both of these books, and I really, really recommend reading them. It'll give you such a clear understanding of really the ulterior motive, the agenda.
Absolutely. Which reminds me that this weekend we're also seeing the cult of personality and the cult of militia in the Women for Liberty, I believe it is. I know there we have another whole. Those people apparently are the women's wing of the Proud Boys.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And they've been compared to something like the Daughters of the Confederacy.
Well, when you look at their website and they have a quote up and it's from Adolf Hitler, then I know that there's a problem. Yeah. But we digress. All right. So we're going to be talking about Bill Gothard. Gothard? Is it Gothard? Bill Gothard.
Different people pronounce it differently, yeah.
Okay, it's Gothard.
Yeah.
From the Institute in Basic Life Principles, because that is really where the Duggars dug in, and so did the others, really, the others that we're talking about. So go ahead and give your, I know you've done a sort of an assessment of the book on your own channel, and not the book, it's not a book, it's a series. And so you did talk a little bit about the first 3 episodes, talks a lot about the Duggars and how they did their thing, and how Josh Duggar ended up being found. He didn't actually get tried for the molestation of his 4 sisters, but he did get child pornography, and the description of the child pornography that they gave,
you've heard it,
blew me away.
Yeah,
awful. And
they don't really describe it adequately in this documentary, but if you seek it out, it's in the court records. It's on a number of podcasts of people who sat in the court. And I was reluctant to really describe it on my channel when I synopsized the documentary. But I hinted and I said, use your imagination, but it's very accessible. All the awful details.
It's way beyond the pale of anything I've ever heard. So
They minimize and deny at an incredible amount. Yeah. Allie and I talked about this, and I feel like the first 3 episodes of this documentary really set up the most important core of the story. And it's almost a necessity to show you the specific ways in which this religion was weaponized, if I can use that, to manipulate the public intentionally. You get the story of the individuals, the members of the family, the other people that belong to this group. You get to see how their lives were full of abuse and manipulation and brainwashing. But it's almost like setting the foundation and building and building and building to the real issue at the top. And we don't need to go over that. I mean, it's just child abuse, parent on child abuse of church authorities, gender abuse in the sense that the young men are empowered and the young women are disempowered to set them up to be the victims of predators. So it's absolutely a predatory organization at the heart. The guy, Bill Gothard, has had terrible accusations made against him.
Yes.
The statute of limitations had run out by the time these young women were old enough and distant enough to get perspective and realize what had been done to them. The statute of limitations had been run out. The court case was dismissed. He pulled a Trump. He countersued them for defamation of his character. And the judge dismissed that case and said, I believe these women. I don't believe you. I believe the women. I think Jim Bob was setting himself up to take over, gather the fame. Yeah. So there's all that abuse, and there's the cover up, and I think the patriarchal theocratic domination and the cover up of it, the glossing over it, is indicative of what they're doing on a national scale. And they make no bones about saying their goal is I mean, this is a quote. Our goal is world domination. It's terrifying. They have their own paramilitary. It's just
the more it went on, the more my mouth hung open. It was like, it reminded me, Warren Jeffs and his problems he had with that they were bad. And they had their own set of consequences, but this is definitely a cult. Yeah.
It's a cult full of sexual abuse, which is what Warren Jeffs was. He had his own personal paraphilic agenda. This goes beyond that because they have a political and a socio.
They do have a political agenda,
and they are dangerous. I equate Opus Dei, the secret Catholic organization that Bill Barr belongs to, Robert Hansen, the spy who just died, he belonged to it. The Federalist Society is sort of the generic Christian right-wing intellectuals, right? And they're the ones who infiltrated the Supreme Court. But I think they work hand in hand with groups like this, and this is one of the worst groups. It's everywhere.
Yeah. The thing, so this Bill Gothard that started this group, he likes to name everything in acronyms as well, they said, but he was never married, never had a child, and yet tells everyone else how to run their marriage, how to run their children, how to take care of everything. And it got to the point where, didn't they have like a lesson on slut shaming? Where they put up pictures of girls and what are you wearing, and that you're going to be attacked by boys because you're the one promoting their lust. And I mean, it goes on and on. It's awful.
They have a homeschooling program, and they don't anymore. Yeah. They had a homeschooling program, and I've peripherally, because I homeschooled, and
me too for a while.
We were the only ones. I don't want to talk about where I am, but we were the only ones in this area that were not religious, And so for 20 odd years, I got to see it in action. I even attended a few homeschooling conferences, and that was a revelation, literally and
Oh, I bet it was. I bet it
Oh my
was.
God.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they have this curriculum that's 50 odd, 52 something pamphlets. And he claimed that this curriculum, which is based on the Sermon on the Mount and his ideology, was all you needed. When you were done, you would have a high school diploma and the equivalent of a bachelor's in pre-law and pre-med. So some of the former members described, for example, one of them was full of drawings of women and young girls in all different kinds of fashionable outfits.
Yes.
The gamut, some extreme, some not. And the lesson plan that day was to go through and pick out all the sinful outfits. And she said, we didn't learn math, we learned slut shaming.
Slut shaming. It was what really surprised me was one of the quotes that was given was that there was a girl that started her period, and somebody said you can't use tampons because that would be taking away the pleasure that your husband would have the first time he was with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
she was punished for taking her own virginity.
Right.
Oh my God.
I know. Give me a break. Yeah.
It's
give me a break.
surreal.
Yeah,
it's
it really
surreal.
is.
And it would be funny, except they're doing this to young girls. And I think that ultimately, the result of all this abuse within the organization, the institutional abuse, the abuse young kids against each other, and the specific abuse in the Duggar family, really, that's the culmination of that part of the story is the long-term damage. You see these Duggar daughters that will speak weeping. They're horrified that anybody knows about what happened to them. They're horrified that this is what their family has come to. They're torn because they still claim they love their brother. And it's a mess. It's worse than that. And then all the former members, they have a variety of different assorted abuses and traumas. It's just unreal.
Yeah. And the fact that it was very interesting what they said about, is it Michelle, the wife, that she always talked like a little child.
Infantilized.
And that was purposeful. That was purposeful. That's what wives do. Yeah. Whoa.
Before she would take a child into a bedroom to beat them, she would say, "Come with Mama." I forget now the term they used to describe beating their children, but it's like the Stepford Wives. Yeah. Do you mind if I kind of talk a little bit about Josh, the oldest son, about his wife Anna? Because I think she is the object lesson in all of this. So I have a quotation, if you don't mind. It's a little bit of a thing.
No, please.
I heard it on a podcast. And it was being discussed by a young woman who left this group. And she was making reference to a Facebook post made in 2015. 2015 is when the letter was written to Oprah. Oprah's show reported it to the child abuse hotline and got the ball rolling. Yeah. And it was before Josh and his wife had all their children. They have 7 now. At the time, they had 4. And it was before he was found guilty and put in prison. So just to set the context. Sure. And I'll read it as quickly as I can, but I think it's really important. This is from the point of view of former members.
Okay.
So let's talk about Anna. Let me tell you that Anna Duggar is in the worst position she could probably be in now. Anna Duggar was crippled by her parents by receiving no education, having no work experience or life experience for that matter. And then she was shackled to this loser because his family was famous in their religious circle and very politically famous too, very influential. Anna Duggar was taught that her sole purpose in life, the most meaningful thing she could do, was to be a chaste and proper, a devout wife and mother. She did that. She followed the rules. This is what she got in reward. A husband who she found out in the span of 6 months, she found this out, not only molested his sisters, but was unfaithful to her in the most humiliating way possible while she was fulfilling her duty of providing him with 4 children and raising them, which I want to talk about that in a minute. She lived up to the standard that men set for her, and in return, the man who demanded this of her sought women who were the opposite. He was paying for sex workers. She can't divorce because her religious environment would blame and ostracize her. She has no education, no work experience to fall back on. So how does she support her kids? From where could she summon the ability to turn her back on everything she ever held to be sacred and safe? The very reason that she's in this predicament in the first place. Her parents have utterly failed her, and somewhere Anna Duggar is sitting praying, not for the strength to get out and stand on her own, but for the strength to stand by this man, to lower herself so he may rise upon her back. She stood by him. Now, this person goes on, the woman who read this on the podcast, not the woman who wrote it, the woman who read it, the former member, editorialized at the end of it a little bit to give her opinion. She says, yes, this sets the stage for you to feel very sympathetic for Anna Duggar. She's in an untenable position. However, she said she was given ample opportunity to stand up and speak for the right thing, and she didn't. She defended him. She said, you have to defend your husband. She had 3 more kids with him after he was charged, because it took a while for this all to go through the courts. They pump him out 1 year. And but she admitted to people behind the scenes that she locked him down by having those children because she was going to make the Duggars pay for the rest of their lives. Nevertheless, she was approached by forensic investigators and psychiatrists to interview her children to make sure they had not been abused, and she refused. Now, she was pregnant with and gave birth to their latest 7th child 2 months before he was found guilty. And they named the child, a little girl, they named her Madison. He was accused of being on Ashley Madison, Life is Short, Have an Affair. That what?
Right. Yeah.
What kind of sickness is going on here, Alan?
Absolutely.
Thank you for letting me read that, because I think.
Oh yes, of course.
She said it perfectly. She said it.
She did. Yeah, she did. Wasn't the other couple that were good friends with Jim Bob and Michelle and blah, blah,
Jim Holt.
Wasn't their daughter Josh's girlfriend? But they found out he molested the children, and they
When he was 15 and she was 16, they were courting, which is officially an arranged engagement, basically. It's exclusive. It's purely with the intention of marriage. Jim Bob and Jim Holt were best friends since they were middle school, I think. And they were their closest friends. And when his daughter and Jim Bob's son were interested in each other, they didn't even have to vet it.
I thought that was cool.
They knew. So they arranged this marriage, but then they found out, and this is such a betrayal. They found out what Jim Bob did. And that's a whole, not Jim Bob, I'm sorry. All those J's.
Josh. I know.
Josh. They found out what Josh did. They saw Jim Bob making all these excuses for him. They saw him, from their pressure, Jim Bob took his son to the trooper, and the trooper said, I'm going to give you a stern talking to, young man, if I have you back in my office. And now this guy's paying 56 years in prison for his own abuses. Another story. But they found out, Michelle Duggar admitted this to them. The Duggars weren't going to tell the Holts about this situation of Josh abusing his sisters until after the wedding.
There's another betrayal.
And speechless. It's hideous.
Yes, I know. Yeah, it is.
So we should talk about.
And so let's cover it up. Let's just keep covering up everything. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
This is your. Don't let me take over.
No, this is our show. No, it's fine. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Jim Bob and politics and power and influence.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It is interesting that the name of their group, the what do they call it? The like a militia. It's not a militia, but it's like a group of young boys.
It's a paramilitary.
It is a paramilitary. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's called the Joshuas. That cracks me up because.
Oh no, that's a different group. The paramilitary is alert. They're the ones who
alert.
Are,
okay.
In their Hitler Youth outfits. They're very important. They're always doing drills. This is like the pubescent boys who have a lot to prove, and they have older ones too. The Joshua generation is actually an adult organization for the ones who have reached a majority, who've gone on to college, which I don't know how school with that nonsense, but they go to Patrick Henry College, which probably makes lots of excuses for them. And the perfect example of all of this pipeline is Madison Gothard.
Yes, absolutely. He was, and I had no idea actually that Jim Bob ran for. Did he get in to the Senate? He was in for like a term.
No, twice.
Okay.
He was Arkansas state representative twice. He ran for state senator, and I don't think he won. But one of his other sons, Jed, has run, and I don't know.
That's right.
What the outcome of that was, but they are very politically connected to the Huckabees and Rick.
Right.
Is it Rick Scott or Rick Perry? They're all the same.
Rick Perry, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Who was the other one? Sarah Palin.
Yeah. Definitely. And we know what
they're like. Joshua generation with Alex Harris. Okay, I actually have it written down right in front of me.
Okay, good.
Okay, they're an elite strike force to take over the highest levels of the government and the world, and the best they could do was Madison Gothard.
Well, they got him in. He just couldn't. He couldn't. He couldn't maintain.
Couldn't keep a lid on his perversion.
Couldn't keep a lid on. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yep.
But they're playing the long game. They claim they don't make any bones about it. They want to take over the world. They want the United States to be fashioned after their belief system, their ideology. They want a theocracy. They don't believe in democracy. They want a theocracy. They believe it's the Handmaid's Tale. 100% it's the Handmaid's Tale. We almost don't need to talk about it because Margaret Atwood did such a good job. But
did such a good job. Yeah.
The only ones who benefit.
What I really don't get is the fact that these very, very conservative people, they don't want a big government, and yet that's exactly what they would get with this theocracy and this. You have all this intrusion into what you can do, what you can't do. You can't read a book. You can't do, all that stuff, and it just doesn't make sense to me how that jives together.
Yeah, it's a dissonant, but that's because they're lying, or they're lying to themselves. They don't want a big liberal government. They want a big government that is patriarchal and authoritarian. What they want is a fascist government, and fascist governments are quite bureaucratic.
Yeah, I don't know.
We sit here and shake our heads in despair. I'm glad I'm old. That's all I can say.
We do. I feel like they go back to this temptation of, temptation. Eve is the tempting. We are continuously being held at this standard that we are Eve in the Garden of Eden, and that we're the ones that are bad, and that we tempt men, and that it's just, and I know that's misogyny. It's just like, what planet are we living on? I don't know.
Hey, nobody held a gun to Adam's head.
Absolutely.
I can't believe that people are designing their entire life based on a story like that. I can't wrap my head around that. It's just bizarre to me. Really bizarre.
It very much is. Yeah.
They are absolutely dedicated to the notion that women are an occasion of sin. Now, who does that sound like? The Taliban. They're the American
that's true.
Taliban. Yeah, they want to control how women dress. They don't like women who wear their hair up. Now, some religions don't like your hair down because they think long hair is beautiful, right? My mother, when she got married at the age of 24, was told by her new sisters-in-law. My mother had gorgeous, thick, black, long, curly hair. Her new sisters-in-law told her, well, you're going to have to put your hair up in a bun. A married woman doesn't run around like a young girl. So this, I can relate to a lot of this nonsense.
Yeah.
It sounds horrifyingly familiar.
Yeah.
But these guys believe that you must wear your hair down no matter what your age, because your neck is sexually appealing to men.
Oh, it's a new thing now. It's the neck. Okay.
Your neck. We laugh, but you know what? You and I, we won't be handmaidens. We won't be in a red cape. We'll be in the scullery.
We will be, or we'll be the cook or something. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh my God.
We'll be Marthas.
We will be Marthas. We will. Thank God, though, because I wouldn't want to be the other. So, I'd rather be a Martha. But then again, if it got to that point, I think I'd have to check out early, if you get my drift.
Well, I have a janitorial service, so my life really wouldn't change all that much. But I know exactly what you mean, because they're not allowed to read. They don't encourage education.
Right.
When girls virtually get no education. I mean, it's like the dark ages in this group for women.
Definitely.
They're told,
that's why Anna is such a victim. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you heard the one young woman who said, the survivor, said, yeah, I was told I didn't need to know math. All I needed to know was up to fractions, because when you bake, you need to know fractions.
Yes.
Which is probably why I'm not a very good baker.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to learn them. I'm still having trouble with some of them, so I understand.
Weird.
What did you think about the dichotomy between the niece of Jim Bob and how she lived and watched her world on one side of the fence and all her cousins' world on the other side of the fence, and just deemed it to be the way it was?
I used to watch it because, like I said, it resonated for me because of my upbringing. Sure. I loved her. I always loved her. She was lighthearted and humorous, very smart, very engaged with the world. Now, her mother is Jim Bob's sister. And I think it's very gender related, gender role related. Jim Bob was the man. He set the tone for the whole family. He was indoctrinated pretty young, middle school, started going to these groups and saw an opportunity for power and control. Deanna, Jim Bob's sister, rejected all of their kind of Baptist upbringing, which was more conventional, thought Jim Bob was nuts. But it shows you how crafty they are at hiding what they are. And I believe Anna. I mean, Amy is all these A's and J's.
I know, A's and J's.
I believe Amy, the cousin, because she really, I'm not sure what her dad, the situation, what her relationship is there. They never talk about him. But she says that she looked up to Jim Bob as a father figure, and she never saw any of this stuff. It's all kept sub rosa,
Right. Because they had to be shiny, happy people. No getting upset.
I know. Stepford family.
Stepford family. When Jill talks, Jill is the only Duggar that talks, really. You see clips of the other girls that were molested, but they weren't being interviewed. And Jill was with her husband. And she's quite a poised young lady. I admired what she talked about. But when she told me about her wedding day and the contracts that they had to sign, and the fact that none of those children made a nickel off that show.
And they
I was
engaged in
aghast.
fraud. Jim Bob engaged
Yes.
in fraud. He misrepresented them as minors, and he signed for them, and then he lied to the ones that he got. I mean, why isn't something being done about that? And you know, there are a couple of other daughters who are a little less enthusiastic about the whole family weirdness. There's one called
I think it's
Ginger.
Jessa and Ginger. Yeah.
You never see Ginger. When she was growing up, she was always considered the black sheep of the family because she was more worldly. It just was naturally came to her. She always looked a tad bit more fashionable, like not in the 17th century, and you know, just had a more engaging personality. She ended up marrying a guy who is a pastor, but I don't know. I don't think he. I can't say this for certain. I don't think he's a member of this group, but he's still a conservative pastor. But they got out of Dodge. They moved to California. He got his own parish thing, and I don't know what the relationship is. She doesn't do a lot of Jill type revelatory interviews that I'm aware of. I mean, I don't follow these people avidly.
No, I know you don't. I know you don't. You've just been looking it up for this. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. But I remember Ginger was a very engaging kid. And you could tell she had a lot going on. Smart person.
She did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Jill, I believe, and Jessa, who were on Good Morning America or whatever show that was back in the day.
Megyn Kelly.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Fox Channel. That's right. Oh,
I've never seen it. I don't know, but I hear things.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
There's another sister, you know. You want to hear about the other sister?
There are more.
The oldest sister? There's a lot
there's an older one than Jill? Right,
yes,
but is there one older than Jill? Oh, okay.
Yes. And you don't know about
didn't
her.
know.
You know why you don't know about her?
No.
Because she's not married.
Oh,
Her name is Jana.
Okay.
She's Josh's twin sister. They were the first.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they treat her like the maiden aunt who lives in the house to help with the cleaning and the cooking. She is completely diminished, minimized, essentially belittled. She's not married, and they've tried over and over to pair her up with people. There's talk just 2 + 2 = she's not interested in these boys.
I understand.
Yeah. And which to me, I told, well, who cares, right? However,
I know.
Be delicious. Would it not be delicious? Would it not be?
That's true. If she found the love of her life. Well, you know, you got to think about this, that where do young boys go in their minds when they are brought up under this type of mentality and they have no way to express it outwardly? So what they do is they do it in surreptitious ways, like Josh did with his sisters. Apparently he molested them when they were sleeping and they didn't really know about it.
Yeah,
no,
that's the lie.
I thought one of that's the lie. Okay.
Jill.
Approached
at some point. This went on. It didn't happen just one time. So that's the first lie. The second lie is they weren't asleep.
They weren't
asleep. The third
lie
is it happened in public in a group setting when they were doing Bible study together, big group of them.
Yeah.
He would put them on his lap. Use your imagination.
I get it. Okay.
And he might have approached them when they were in bed, but they were awake, and Jill physically fought him.
Okay.
Amy talks about it a little bit. She said she was so proud of Jill for standing up for herself. But Jill's the one with the guts in the family.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. But, you know, you do see this type of thing with the minister's children sometimes. I've seen it myself. It doesn't mean it always happens. But, you know, the ones that are supposed to be tied to the most highest good, the people like the minister or whatever. Yeah, the standard. And they have to have some way to express it. And so unfortunately gets expressed in these very shadowy ways. But I'm not saying everybody. I don't want anyone to think I'm saying that. That isn't everybody, but it can happen that way. It can happen that way.
Well, it's my
you can have an outlet.
Purely my opinion. It's a gut feeling. Josh came by it honestly, if you know what I mean. Those kind of acting out, they're from experience. Often.
Yeah.
Not always. Often. And I suspect there's generational, and I don't necessarily mean within their family, but within the structure of the larger church community.
Larger church. Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of abuse. All the former members talk about a lot of abuse that goes on at these facilities and camps and seminars and blah, whatever. But the scary thing to me about all of this, this is a sad portrait of cult thinking and patriarchal control and misogyny and the abuse of children. The way they raise their children is abhorrent. But ultimately, to me, the real scary part of this story is their political ambition.
That is true. And they don't care how long it takes, as you mentioned. It's a long-term plan. It doesn't matter if it's you or your next generation, or then it's gonna eventually come to that.
Well, Roe v. Wade.
Right.
Rest my case. So their plot is they take the kids that are the best and the brightest, and they filter them through these conservative schools like Patrick Henry, and they get them positions. They make them recognizable to people in the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and on the state level. And they get them positions as interns in the White House, interns in the Capitol building. They're a large majority, and I've read this elsewhere, large majority of the interns who go to Washington, D.C. come from these religious conservative family backgrounds. They get pushed forward by their local representatives who are elected by these churches. And I'm here to tell you, before the end times, in the better days when we could associate in public, I take a walk every day, and I would have access to pit stops along the way. Now I have to redo my whole thing, but I go way to the top of the hill, and there's one of these churches. These independent Bible churches, which is loosely affiliated with them. Didn't know that. And I would use their ladies' room. And I'm in the bathroom, and I took out my phone and recorded, because they pipe in the sermon from the middle of the church. They pipe it into the bathroom. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I recorded it to bring home to my husband. I said, listen to this. Unbelievable. They pull political stuff. I won't get into it. Political, every time. They tell them how to vote. They tell them what to think. They ask for money for specific political things. They use these kids. Gothard was using these kids at their facilities. Families would send them thinking this was a great camp where they were going to do service work for people in the community. And they'd be sitting all day in these big rooms doing campaigning work for his chosen candidates, like Sarah Huckabee. Yeah, I know. I was going to say, it reminds me, Go ahead.
She is. It explains completely why she wanted to have children, the child labor law changed.
You read my mind. Exactly. Yeah.
I was, when she was doing it, I'm like, what the hell? And then I saw this, and I thought, she grew up in that mentality, and it
does them a favor. There's a lot of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yep. Absolutely. Wow.
So it's a formidable bureaucracy that they've created behind the scenes, that people kind of know the radical right-wing religious white Christian nationalists are out of control, but they actually have a very well thought out plan.
They do.
Step by step. Yeah.
Yes, they do. I think the church has denied this. They in the articles I've read, the church is like, no, nothing. This is, like they always do. But what I liked about it was they had so many different people come on with different experiences and different lifestyles. And one of the young men, his father was angry all the time, and they take out a switch. I guess they cut a switch from a tree. There's a lot of physical brutality that happens, and there's even a video of a man. I need a little child to come up here. Can somebody volunteer a child? And then he says, "I'm going to spank you." Remember that part when he spanks the kid?
I described it when I synopsized the thing.
You did? Okay.
Debated talking about it. It's so horrendous.
I know.
And then a couple of people told me, I couldn't watch this whole thing the video you made because it's so horrendous. The blanket training.
Yes.
I talked about this several times over the past couple of years, and the feedback I get is in disbelief. That can't be true. Well,
I have to tell you that in the 60s or the early 70s, when I found out about the Holocaust, I confronted my mother because she was born in 1920. So she would have been, an older person during the Holocaust. She was married and had children, I think. And I said, why didn't you guys do anything about this? What the hell? And she said, Alice, we thought, oh my God, that's so bad it couldn't be true. So we live like that. We live in blind deference to, the idea that, oh, that's so disgusting. How could that even be true? Because truth is worse than fiction. It's just unimaginable.
Allie, it's worse than that. I fully believe your mother, because the truth was kept from the American public to a large extent.
That too.
People in power knew about it because two guys escaped from, I think, Auschwitz. They're only two people who ever escaped. They escaped and they told the global community. They told Europeans, they told the United States, and they just sat
What
on.
can we do about it? Yeah.
They turned ships full of people away to go to their deaths. The United States turned shiploads of people back to Germany.
Because we didn't want to take them in.
Because they were anti-Semitic. It was to the core.
True. That's true.
Our country was anti-Semitic. It still is. Look at what's going on. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. So, she did say that we didn't have news like we do now. She did say that. So that there were people that were not aware. But when they did find out, she said, and she almost felt, she was almost affronted the fact that I would call out, not her personally, but the people that were living at that time, because you just didn't, you didn't even air your dirty laundry in front of anybody, like we talked about the other day. You just kept quiet. You never told anybody anything bad about your family or your group of people. So,
and that's so cultural. It's not true everywhere in the world then even, but I'm constantly reminded that there are a lot of people who don't follow what's going on in government and politics.
That's true.
I think people feel a sense of it's learned helplessness.
It is. If I don't know about it, then I don't have to do anything about it, and helpless. There's nothing I can do. Both things.
What can I do about it?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
My own kids, they're very socially aware and all about social justice, blah blah blah. But I remind them constantly. I struggle with trying to be a vegetarian. It's not going well. And they're all, vegan. They're militant vegans. And so, I like to tell them, you can come at me about that when you guys get involved in what's going on in Washington, D.C. But a lot of people, it's true for everybody. You have to pick and choose your stress that you can cope with. And we're all coming from different places with different tools. And it's not for us to judge, but it's certainly for us to feel frustrated.
It can be frustrating. And I think that's why what you do is such a service to people, because there are also people that they say they don't have time to read, or they don't, but they do. They just choose not to read. That's not what they do with their time. But they need this information so badly. And the fact that you can read and synopsize something and bring up some of the cultural things that people need to be aware of is so important. And your channel does that. And I appreciate what you do.
Your book club. How do you choose books for your book club?
We've been usually just choosing spiritual books. That's what everybody has wanted to do. And we have a list, and then we vote on what we're going to do next. And so it's gone fairly well. Not everybody is able to read the entire book, because not everybody, even though we give it a month, but it's okay, because important conversations can come from anywhere. And if you can get together with folks that are interested in talking about important conversations, then it's okay. For as far as I'm concerned, we don't have to nail it completely, do the whole book.
Well, when people say that they don't pay attention to the news because it's too whatever, and that they're totally valid, to have.
Right.
I always tell them I have always been interested in history, but didn't really follow politics much until 2015. The day of the escalator was my epiphany.
Good for you. Yes.
And I think it's very interesting that over these past few years, it has become a completely different journey. I hate that word. I feel like I'm on The Bachelor. my journey.
Will you take this, Rose?
Oh, God. You need a little entertainment. It's okay. So just
That's right.
Involvement and engagement with the negativity that I see happening, that's an inadequate word, has led me down a path of spiritual exploration. So you just never know where it's going to come from. You
never know where it's going to come from. That's true.
Right.
That's true, Helen. Yep.
So I encourage people, pay attention, because there's a message out there.
And I can't tell you how many Reformed Catholics that I have talked to since I've come on YouTube. They're the ones really that are coming out of the woodwork, and it's understandable, because although not as bad as this kind of stuff that we're seeing, it was a cult of its own. It was a cult of its own. Yeah.
May I remind you of the Inquisition?
Oh, well, yes, but I mean in modern day. Yeah.
How about the residential schools for Indigenous people?
Oh,
How
yes.
about the schools in Ireland, the Magdalene schools, where if you were a young girl and you got pregnant, they offer you a home to have your baby in, right? So they could sell the baby and make money, and then put you out to work in unpaid indentured labor while you were berated and abused. So don't get me started. Just don't get me started. I think. And
the priest abuse. There's the biggest.
Yeah. Oh, it's lived experience. And this is a delicate issue, because many people are very religious, and
they are.
I'm not good at controlling my mouth, but I'm constantly reminding myself I'm not trying to find fault with people who get solace
or judge them
from a belief system, right? But I have enormous anger and resentment and contempt for the institution. The Mormon Church just got in trouble with the federal government from withholding. Now, I'm so bad with numbers, but we're talking billions of dollars that they withheld from the federal government in investments and taxes. The head authorities of the church. This wasn't just some little guy somewhere in Provo or something. This was that incredible amounts of money that they've been squirreling away and not claiming for taxes. Okay, so that's them. Then there's the clergy of the Catholic Church and all the abuses that go along with that. And if you've ever been to the Vatican and seen the amount of jewels and gold and precious artwork, just sitting there while people are on the street in the plaza
starving.
Yeah. And then there's this situation with these right-wing Bible people who hate African Americans, hate anyone in the LGBTQ community, hate women.
That's right.
Nothing but contempt for women. And, what did Jesus have to say about that on the Sermon on the Mount? It seems to me I read a different Sermon on the Mount than they did. I'm not saying
Absolutely.
I'm not saying,
Yeah. No, you know what? I teach in my class, we do Christopher Hitchens, and he was one of the biggest atheists of all time. I know. So we do his mortality book. And I have a lot of conservative Christians in the class. And in the book, he talks about, please save your prayers for yourself. I don't need them. Thank you very much. But if it makes you feel better, you can pray for me. And they at first are taken aback by it. And then I remind them, he's read the Bible, he's read the Quran, he's read the Talmud, he's read whatever. He's very intelligent. And he's made his own decisions about what he believes in those things. So you can't criticize the fact that he is not informed. And they don't love him when they come out, but they're like, he's entitled to his opinion. That's all.
When he got sick, there was a lot of ghoulish sort of shite.
Oh, yes.
Right on. Yeah.
There was.
And I think people were hoping he would have a deathbed revelation.
Conversion,
Jesus, right? Ask for a priest. George Washington, when he was on his deathbed, refused the priest, sent the priest out of the room. He didn't.
Oh.
George Washington was not. A lot of those guys.
Okay. And our founding fathers were deists. They weren't religious either.
Exactly. They did a lot of speechifying that included references to God because they were speaking to the public. But in their personal lives, they were rational.
They were deists.
They weren't into that. But when Christopher Hitchens died, there was a lot of hope that he would go out crying for his mother, that he would be terrified. And I think that just shows you that people often cling to these beliefs because they're scared. It's fear. Which I
definitely. Yeah. And I love that right up until the end, he was who he was. He didn't believe in it. He wasn't going to change his mind. And they agreed with me. Most of my students will agree with me. They'll say, yes, I don't agree with what he did, which is fine. But they did agree that he did that. So I also want to say this. Marvin was right. You're Marvin. You said he was a heathen and your mother was afraid, because for his soul and so on.
He took me down the road to perdition. Actually, he never talks about any of this stuff.
Sure.
He is the least introspective person I've ever met on the surface.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter after almost 45 years. Doesn't matter what the subject is. We always agree. It could be something we've never talked about. And
wow.
I'll say, did you know? And he goes, oh yeah. And we always agree. So somehow or other, we came from these dramatically different.
Disparate.
Yeah. His family was Republican. Mine was Democrat. His family came over on the Mayflower, literally. I was an immigrant. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
It goes on and on.
He was the heathen. I was the peasant.
Well, it worked out for you, and
I don't know.
You're together still.
Promise me if I get arrested, that you tell them it was justifiable homicide. I beg them to put me in solitary confinement. Yeah, I am totally kidding.
I know you are. No,
story.
Yeah, it does tell you something, though, about the fact that you don't have to be religious to be a kind and loving person, because my son is an atheist and he absolutely is one of the kindest people I've ever met. He just is, always has been. In fact, the real irony was he went to a Christian school for a year and they gave him the Christian Character Award.
That's great.
He was the only boy that got it. He was the only boy that got it, and I want to say the only atheist that probably ever got it as well.
I bet.
So funny.
Well, the irony is that there's this expectation on their part. I hate to set this dichotomy up, but true biblical right-wing fundamentalist believers are coming from the perspective that humans are inherently sinful and flawed.
Yes, that's true.
And that if you don't have God on your side, how can you be a good person?
Yeah. Yep.
If you haven't embraced the belief system and been brought into the cult and buy into the beliefs, you can't possibly be a good person because you're human and humans are evil.
Right.
And especially
I didn't grow. I was lucky. I grew up in New England, and I could have been in one of those fire and brimstone churches, but I wasn't. I was in a church that only said God was love. I never knew he was an angry God. No one ever told me that.
What was the brand of church?
Congregational. Yeah, it was a congregational. And, it just was it was an independent church. And, they didn't talk about all the bad stuff. They didn't. They just didn't. I don't remember hearing sin, and all that. I never heard any of that. So I really was lucky, even though now I'm a Buddhist, which is more of a philosophy. I appreciate the fact that I didn't.
A Buddhist? You're like you're.
I believe in all their precepts. Yeah, I just believe there's just so many beautiful things that they believe in. There's no church going thing with Buddhism. It's just really a philosophy.
Well, it just seems pretty common sense, actually.
It is common sense. Yeah, it's like the golden rule: do unto others as they would do unto you. Nothing wrong with that. Very simple. Yeah.
Well, I think all religions have this if you did a Venn diagram, there's this little spot where they intersect. And it always boils down to
always
onto others as you would have others do.
Absolutely.
Every religion.
Every religion.
Yeah.
Yep.
All the rest is noise. It's just noise.
It's just noise. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting that you were lucky enough to experience what I call Christianity light.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We were taught that we were born with a state of original sin.
Original sin.
And you had to be baptized to eradicate that sin. And that's why they baptize Catholic babies, really young. Within a
really young
of birth at the latest, because they're afraid if they die, and
right.
Because if you're a newborn in a Catholic family, at least this is the way they used to think. I don't know now, but if you're a newborn and you die and you haven't had your baptism, you're going to hell. Actually, you're going to purgatory, and you'll be in purgatory forever. Right. And I'm going to meet them there because my hell is going to be babysitting in purgatory for eternity.
And see, the difference in my church was you didn't get baptized, you got christened. And
they use that word too.
They do use that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because I wasn't like immersed or anything. There are some like the Baptist church, they immerse you under the water and all that stuff,
Well, baptism comes from John the Baptist. And,
right.
And they did the water thing, which they do in the Catholic Church. They pour water on your head. They don't dunk you. But christening comes from the Greek, and it's got to do with the chrisma. I can't say it right. It's the blessed oil.
Oh, yes. On your head. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. Wow. So, I have enjoyed discussing this with you. I'm sorry if I was tongue tripping a bit. It's early. It's a little early for me, but I have no excuse. But this was so important. I felt like we needed to talk about it. And again, no judgment of other people and what they desire to do, but realize too that each decision you are responsible for it as well. And some of those decisions that you may choose to take won't be, because we all go through that, won't be the best decisions, but we are responsible for what the outcomes are. And these people need to really show their responsibility for what they have done to their children. And why so many children? Because God says the more children that you have, the more you've left your mark, or, they would justify.
Well, it's that quiverful. I actually misspoke a little bit, and I said it was the quiverful movement, and it's not really a cohesive movement. It exists in a lot of different religions. I was raised in the quiverful movement, and I didn't even know it.
Right.
And the concept comes from a quote from the Bible that your children are like arrows in your quiver. Their goal is to spread them out all over the world and proselytize. Yeah. I think I end this story here, if you put aside the politics and you just talk about the people in the religion, I end with a great feeling of sorrow for people who have been so enormously brainwashed, and I apologize if that offends people, but that's exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it causes neurological changes that are really difficult to overcome. I was a malcontent. I was brainwashed. My family was very conservative Catholic. Pentecostal Catholicism didn't exist when I was growing up, but I can't tell you how many times I was humiliated in front of my friends because it was October or May. And every night after dinner, we all had to kneel in the living room and say the rosary, because one of those months was the month of Mary, and one of those months was the month of the rosary. My friends would come to the door to play in the summer, after dinner. We'd all be saying our rosaries on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think anything that's over the top, that disrupts the balance of one's life is too much. That I'm speaking from my own silly point of view, because I'm a Libra and everything's going to be always balanced this way or that way.
That's what you want. Yeah.
That's what we need. We don't want to be, because when we're out of balance is when these kinds of things can occur. And but it is an important watch, I believe. And if you can get through some of their story, which is okay, it's okay, and get to the real meat and potatoes of this video, you will see that, this isn't probably just this group. I'm sure there are other groups out there that we don't know anything about. In fact, when I was homeschooling my son, the only material I could even buy for homeschool material was religious material. And I used to say to my son, I think so, a Becca book.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And there was one about Pastor Goodall. What's that?
No, because I didn't do those. I got my curricula at Payless. I went to the magazine section at Payless, the drugstore, and they had all those workbooks for children. And when my kids were
that's what your curriculum was? Oh.
Yeah, they were great. And but that was just a jumping off point. It was for practice. I would pick we had a cycle, and we started out with early cultures, and one year we would do everything around early cultures. They learned hieroglyphics, they learned just the history, geography, all of it. They learned the geography of the Middle East, and and just all kinds of stuff like that. And then the next year, and it didn't matter what grade you were on, because you could adjust it to any level.
Adjust it to the grade,
Yeah. And then the next year we would do, I don't know, I can't remember now, probably from about the end of the Roman Empire to the late the beginning of the Middle Ages. And then we do the whole Middle Ages, and then we do the Renaissance, and then modern times, and then American history, and then we'd cycle back. So every 4 or 5 years we'd reinforce, and you'd get it as a little kid. Yeah. Doing cuneiform with mud from the yard, and then in a few years we're much more ready to learn about Hammurabi, and and it just grew from that.
Sure.
You don't need a lot of money to homeschool.
No.
You don't need fancy textbooks. Most of them are printed in Texas anyway. No, they are. That's where all the school books are.
They are. I know. Very true. Yeah.
Lee Harvey Oswald was in a school book depository.
In this, yes, and of course they take a lot of material out. The Texas School Board people take certain things out of the text. So yeah, so you get it either way, even in public school. Think about it. Yeah.
Well, there's Bob Jones University.
Yes.
And there was Becca.
Becca.
And then there was this nonsense.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was pretty much what most homeschoolers.
What most people did. He did the Becca, I believe. And, they'd be in the math section, he'd be doing math problems, and it says, Pastor Allgood wants to help Trudy Goodall with this and that. And he'd say, Mom. And I'd say, just go past it. It's not important. It's not important.
It's your fault he's an atheist.
Well, what's really funny is I took him to Unity Church. We went to sweat lodges when he was a kid. We did Buddhist stuff. He learned all the spiritual tenets that he could. And then he made up his own mind because I told him that's what he had to, that's what he should do. And so, and I'm not worried that he's an atheist. It's okay, because I know he's got a good, strong foundation. So
I raised a house full of little atheists.
I bet you did.
And now they all think I've completely lost my mind.
It's okay. That's okay.
Talking about things like Dolores Cannon, and they're like, "Oh my God, Mom is senile." But
I had that in the 90s. It's some of the best material I've ever read.
So
my favorite one is with the Essenes. That's my favorite. Anything with the Essenes.
That was a revelation. That was really interesting.
It was.
And then,
yes, it was.
Edgar Casey. I don't know if you noticed. I talked to the guy who wrote the Alexandria Project.
To Stefan.
He knows everybody. It was just
astounding. He knows Helen Casey. I was surprised. Yeah.
Yes, and he was saying that when he read Edgar Casey's stuff, the sessions about the Essenes, it was long before the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Everybody else, It was
all accurate. All accurate. I told him it would just be easier to talk about who we didn't know.
We did. That's very true. Both my husband and I, our first foray into metaphysics, real deep study, was Edgar Casey. And he gave those books to his father when his father was dying, and he had a conversation with his father, and his father agreed that this man was doing what he was doing. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Do you remember Jean Dixon?
Yes. Yeah. And Ruth Montgomery.
Jean Dixon and Linda Goodman's Love Signs.
That's right. That's right. And Ruth Montgomery. My mother read all her books as well. Yeah. We had some good ones that started us out. So
it's a journey.
Well, we've come to over our hour, and thank you all for being here with us, listening to us discuss this. Thank you so much, Helen, for even telling me to watch this. It was a lot of fun, and it's always nice to chat with you about this. Yeah.
Thank you. And then check out Psychics and Psychos.
Yes, Psychics and Psychos on Helen's channel. Please be sure to check it out. She and Denise have a really wonderful time doing what they do. So thank you, Helen.
Doozy coming up. Slongafoil.
To you.
Sluncha.